The jungle rang with the crack of gunfire. Shotgun blasts echoed through creaking boughs, and shivering venom gauze thickets, sending clouds of needleflies flittering nervously skywards. From afar, the fight sounded like distant thunder. Up close, it was all fury and blood.
Bring that damned beast down!
Watch Sergeant Mordelai barked the order, voice tight with tension. Bleeding from countless wounds, but still very much alive, the hulking Carnivosaur lumbered from the mouth of the ravine and snapped exoskeletal jaws at the Deathwatch brothers tormenting it. Brother Ordaris fired his bolter, the weapon spitting its shell into one of the beast's primary eyes. Blood sprayed, and the Carnivosaur reared back, venting a shuddering roar of pain. As it swung its head back down, Battle Brother Markov lunged in, shoving his shotgun's muzzle directly beneath the monster's jaw and squeezing the trigger. The gun boomed. Flesh and bone fountained skywards amidst a welter of gore. The enormous Xeno beast convulsed, all but decapitated, then crashed down on its side, legs kicking.
Down,
said Markov, racking his shotgun's slide.
Next.
Brother Kavain, the Tauran, shook his head.
Praying for rain in a thunderstorm, brother?
He asked.
This world has foes enough, without calling for more. I doubt prayer is required,
said Brother Castivar. The Blood Angel deactivated his power sword, cleaning its blade on a fronded plant.
That fight made too much noise, and Drakari senses are sharp. That is my concern,
said Sergeant Mordelai.
The omens all point towards danger approaching. Reload on the move, brothers. We have an ambush site to reach. Too late,
said Brother Ordaris. The Raven Guard tilted his head and narrowed his eyes, listening intently. Mordelai heard it a moment later, the high whine of powerful grav engines drawing rapidly closer. Brother Markov swept his gaze across the jungle surrounding them, bionic eye whirring as it flicked through spectral filters.
Single contact. South, 2,000 yards and closing. Extreme speed. They'll be on us in moments. Dispersal, brothers,
ordered Mordelai. He snapped his bolt gun's clip from its slot, switching it out for a fresh load.
Defensive formation. Portentous. 4-1.
Vox Pips flashed back to him, his brothers acknowledging his orders and moving swiftly to obey. Mordelai saw the enemy craft, a Venom-class grav skimmer streaking between the trees at suicidal speed. Whooping DRUKHARI witches clung to the vehicle, blades and pistols at the ready, predatory leers painted across their blood-spattered faces. Sergeant Mordelai noted thin streamers of smoke trailing from the machine's fuselage, and a slight shudder to its flight path.
Battle damaged,
he voxed.
Superficial,
replied Ordaris, as he ducked into cover amidst an outcropping of stone vines.
Doesn't seem to have dampened the Xenos' battle lust,
commented Kavain.
Blood-mad filth. Here they come!
Said Markov.
Sanguinius, lend me your might,
snarled Castivar, reigniting his power sword. The venom banked suddenly, its pilot threading the needle between a tangle of thorn trees. As it burst through the foliage, its passengers leapt acrobatically from its flanks and hit the ground running. They let fly, a hail of needles and splinters ripping through the undergrowth around the Deathwatch battle brothers. At the same time, the Venom's cannons chattered to life, tearing twin trails of devastation through the jungle. Brother Kavain was too slow, and Mordelai saw the Tauran punched from his feet by the soaring lines of fire. Kavain was swallowed by the underbrush without a sound, but his brothers howled in anger, as the venom screamed overhead.
Xenos scum!
Roared Castavar, legs pistoning as he threw himself into a headlong charge.
Castavar, hold!
Shouted Sergeant Mordelai, but the order fell on deaf ears. Ordaris ducked back as a blast of ravening energies tore through the stone vines he hid behind, then leant out and snapped off a shot that blew a witch off her feet.
Sir,
He asked, calmly reloading.
Support his charge,
Said Mordelai, striding through the undergrowth in Castavar's wake. He fired his bolt gun one-handed, sending hellfire shells whipping towards the foe. The nimble Xenos wove around his fire, loosing more shots as they sprinted closer. Splinters of jagged crystal rattled from his armor, one shot grazing his right eye lens. Mordelai snarled in anger. At the forefront of the Xenos charge came a lithe Hecatrix, envenomed whip cracking in one fist, razor-edged blade in the other. Her alien features were set in an arrogant sneer as she ran to meet Castavar head-on. The Blood Angel swung his power sword in a decapitating arc, but the Drakari slid easily beneath it, flowing up onto her feet behind him and cracking her lash across his back. Paint and armor flayed away, but the Blood Angel turned undaunted and stabbed at his attacker again. Mordelai heard the telltale scream of engines approaching once more, this time from the ravine to their rear. He snapped off a shot, forcing a witch to weave back into cover.
the skimmer is coming in for another pass.
He voxed.
Mine!
Replied Ordaris, stepping out and raising his bolter. The Xenos attack craft streaked into sight, the pilot's murderous grin visible through its crystalline windscreen. Splinter cannons hissed, chewing up the undergrowth around the Raven Guard battle brother. Ordaris ignored them, exhaling slowly and squeezing his trigger. His bolter barked, and a fist-sized hole appeared dead center in the Venom's windscreen. The pilot's leer vanished in a welter of blood as his head erupted, and the Gravcraft gave a sudden lurch. Its wingtip clipped a tree trunk, and then it was tumbling, end over end through the underbrush, shredding apart in flaming shards of wreckage as it went. Ordaris dropped smoothly to one knee, allowing the hurtling wreck to spin over his head, then came up reloading, already seeking another target. Mordelai had no time to commend his brother on his exceptional marksmanship, as a witch was already sprinting towards him, pistol blazing. To his right, he saw another of the Xenos weave through a stand of venom gorse and hurl herself at Brother Markov. Bladed gauntlets whistled through the air, the Crimson Fist just managing to interpose his shotgun between the weapons and his faceplate. Sparks flew, and Markov was driven back, blocking and punching as fast as he could as the enemy rained down blow after blow. Mordelai's own enemy was almost on him, curved blade glinting and eyes wild with murder lust. The Silver Skull fired a burst of shells, but the witch flipped neatly over him, barely slowing her charge. Mordelai fired again, cursing as the Xenos dodged left and right, giving a high, cruel laugh as she did so. Her return fire struck his gauntleted fist, stabbing needles of agony through his fingers and causing him to drop his bolt gun. Mordelai swung his power sword up, blade crackling and ready, but his foe was nightmarishly fast. She sprang high, spinning balletically in the air, and bringing her own blade around in a devastating arc to claim his head. At the last second, the crash of a shotgun bellowed in Mordelai's ear, loud enough to momentarily baffle his auto-senses. The Drakari was snatched sideways with phenomenal force, her inky blood spraying Mordelai's faceplate, her sundered corpse rebounding from a tree trunk and sprawling on the jungle floor. Mordelai glanced sideways and saw Brother Kavane, back on his feet, shotgun smoking.
Damn Xenos,
said the Tauran gruffly.
I think they dented my armor, sir.
Mordelai's reply was cut off as Castavar's pained roar rang through the vox. The Drakari leader had wrapped her lash around the Blood Angel's neck and dragged him off balance, driving her envenomed dagger in under his right armpit. She had disarmed him, his blade nowhere to be seen. Mordelai snatched up his bolter, but the two combatants were too closely entwined, the Drakari moving too fast. He drew breath to order a shot from Ordaris, but before he could, Castavar's hand snapped up and grabbed the Hecatrix whip. Bellowing oaths to Sanguinius, ignoring the poisons eating their way through his gauntlet, Castavar wrenched upon the whip with all of his might. The Drakari was hauled off balance, but her shriek of surprised indignation was cut off as the Blood Angel's helmed forehead slammed into her face. Flesh, bone and blood sprayed, and the Hecatrix toppled limply backwards into the spined undergrowth. At the same moment, the roar of a shotgun signaled an end to Brother Markov's duel. His attacker fell, all but bisected by the point-blank shot, leaving the Crimson Fist bloodied in a dozen places, but still standing. Castavar had not fared so well, the Blood Angel staggering then dropping to one knee.
Poison!
He gasped over the fox.
I just need a moment. Brother Sergeant,
Voxed Ordaris, X-loading a targeting rune to Mordelai's auto-sensors. It highlighted the last of the Xenos, sprinting away as fast as his legs would carry him through the undergrowth. The rune settled on a spot slightly left of center, between the alien shoulder blades.
Through and through. Temporarily non-lethal,
said Ordaris. Mordelai vox-pipped acknowledgement and flicked his shot selector to Kraken rounds. He raised his bolter, and intoning an oath of detestation for the alien, took his shot. The bolt round roared away, chasing down the fleeing Drakari in a split second. Intended for piercing heavily armored foes, the round punched clean through armor, flesh, bone and armor once again, before detonating a foot in front of the fleeing alien. Nerve clusters torn, organs punctured, the witch was blown backwards off his feet and left sprawled, semi-conscious and groaning. Ordaris was on him in moments, pinning the wounded Xenos beneath his boot, even as Kavain hastened to see to Castavar and Markov's wounds. Sergeant Mordelai sheathed his blade and strode towards the fallen Xenos, hate simmering in his chest.
Let's see what it knows,
he said.